Hi everyone. I hope you've been enjoying the Magic Tree House series I've been reading to you called Midnight on the Moon. These books were written by Mary Pope Osborne, and we have read chapters 1 and 2 so far, so let's move on to chapter 3. In chapter 2, if you remember, they had found a big giant window and a big giant door. Annie had found it first, and when Jack joined her, the very last part says, what he saw took his breath away. He stared out at a rocky gray land filled with craters and mountains, and Annie said, "Say hi to the moon." Do you have any predictions as to what might happen in this next chapter? This chapter is called Open Sesame. It's chapter 3. "The fourth M thing must be out there," said Annie. Beside the door was a button with the word open on it. Annie reached for the button. "Wait!" Jack grabbed her hand. "There's no air on the moon, Annie, remember?" "Oh, right. Yeah, but we have to go out to find the M thing." "Let's see what the book says," said Jack. He pulled the book out of his pack and he flipped through it until he found a page that showed the surface of the moon and read aloud, "It takes 14 Earth days to equal 1 day on the moon. No air protects the moon from the sun's rays, so the daytime heat reaches 260 degrees. Jack looked at Annie. "I told you our blood would boil if we went out there," he said. "Yuck," she said. Jack read from the book again. "Moon scientists wear space suits which have controls to keep them from getting too hot or too cold. And they have tanks, and they provide air for 2 hours. "Well, where do we get space suits?" asked Annie. She looked around. She trotted back down the hall. "Maybe in here?" Jack was studying the map. "Let's try the spacesuit storeroom." "Don't look at the map," said Annie. "Look at the real room." Jack glanced up. Annie was peering through a doorway off the hall. "There's a ton of space stuff in here," she said. Jack went to look. Bulky white suits hung from hangers, air tanks, helmets, gloves, boots sitting in neat rows on shelves. "Whoa, it's like the armor room in a castle," said Jack. "Yeah, with huge armor," said Annie. "Let's pick out the smallest stuff," said Jack. "The suits can go on over our clothes." So Annie found the smallest white suit, and Jack found the next smallest, and they stepped into them. Then Annie locked Jack's air tank into place. "Thanks," he said, and he did the same for her. "Thanks," she said. "Gloves?" said Jack. He and Annie pulled on white gloves. "Boots?" said Annie. They each pulled on a huge pair of white boots. "Helmets?" said Jack. He reached for a helmet. "Whoa, they're pretty light," he said. "I thought it'd feel like a knight's helmet." Jack and Annie put the helmets on, and they locked each other's into place. Here's a picture. "I can't move my head right or left," said Annie. "Me neither," said Jack. "Let's try walking." Jack and Annie moved clumsily around the room. Jack felt like a fat snowman. "Close your visor," said Annie. They both closed their see-through visors, and cool air filled Jack's helmet. "I can breathe!" Annie yelled. Her voice boomed in Jack's ears. "Whoa! Talk quietly," Jack said. "We have 2-way radios inside of our helmets." "Sorry," whispered Annie. Jack put the book back into his pack and slung the pack over his shoulder. "Okay," he said. "Remember, we only have 2 hours of air in our tanks, so we need to find the fourth M thing really fast." "I hope we can find it," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack, because he knew they could not go home until they did. "Let's go," said Annie. She gave Jack a little push. "Watch it, no goofing off," he said. "We don't want to fall over in these suits. Just go, go," said Annie, and she pushed him out of the room. They walked back to the airlock. "Ready?" said Annie. "Open sesame." She pressed the open button. A door slowly slid closed behind them, and a door opened in front of them. And Jack and Annie stepped out onto the moon. That's the end of chapter 3. That's a cliffhanger, all right. That means something in this last chapter was interesting enough to get your attention and keep it so you're excited for the next chapter. I know I am. That chapter was called Open Sesame, and I will be posting chapter 4 very soon. Chapter 4 is called Moon Rabbits. All right? Moms and dads, be looking for an email or rather a Kinderline message with some follow-up activities for Chapter 3. I've really enjoyed you sharing your pictures of Jack and Annie and your tree houses and your comprehension questions too. So please feel free to keep sending them to me because I certainly do like to hear from you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. See you very soon. Bye.